So in this training, we're going to be talking about civil rights. So what is civil rights? So here's some goals. So the goal is to provide knowledge of rights and responsibilities to recipients and program staff. That's the goal of the training. So it's also, when you look at civil rights, it's to ensure equal, fair, and respectful treatment of everybody, to eliminate illegal barriers which prevent or deter anyone from receiving benefits. So some laws surrounded by civil rights. So these laws and regulations are in place to ensure that people are not discriminated against by programs that receive federal funding assistance. These laws apply anytime there is any federal financial assistance as well, such as cash grants, food commodities, training, equipment, other goods and services as well. A few programs that receive federal funding assistance are Emergency Food Assistance Program, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, and also us, so S.A.F.E. So in addition, we also purchase food from the federally funded food bank for our clients. So here's just some laws on history. So Civil Rights Act of 1964 was for people who were discriminated against because of their race, color, national origin. Another one that was for that purpose as well was the Restoration Act of 1987. So then we have Education Amendments from 1972. This was for sex discrimination. There's some in here that cover disabilities, and then also ones that cover basically anything you can be discriminated against, such as race, color, national origin, sex, age, and disabilities. When talking about the protected class, it refers to any person or group of people who have characteristics for which discrimination is prohibited, and this would be based on any law, regulations, or executive orders. So we need to remember that civil rights are non-political rights, and that the USDA prohibits discrimination in all programs and activities based on things such as race, color, national origin, age, disability, sex, biological beliefs, and religion. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some types of discrimination and what those mean. So one would be disparate treatment. So this is intentional discrimination. And then there's disparate impact. So this would be the neutral rule impacting a group of people that would be disproportionately. So reprisal or retaliation against those involve a civil rights complaint or exercising civil rights. An exception would be that Congress can establish a program that is intended for certain groups of people, and it is not discrimination to exclude those who do not meet eligibility requirements. An example of this would be like some scholarships to college may only apply for those in a certain group of people. So we're going to look at some examples. So a situation could be a food pantry that receives federal financial assistance but is not accessible to people with wheelchairs. So what are some possible solutions to this problem? Just take a minute and think of that. So possible solutions could be parking lot entrances and exits, halls, elevators, restrooms, sign language interpreters, braille signage, and or the use of service animals could be allowed at the site. You could also offer alternative arrangements for the service. Something to remember is that programs must ensure access and reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities. The site should be accessible to people with all types of disabilities, things such as mobility, sight, hearing disabilities, or offer alternative means of service delivery, and those should be advertised and provided as well. With providing language assistance, agencies and programs must take responsible steps to ensure meaningful access to your programs and activities by persons with limited English proficiency. These agencies must be flexible to provide these services and activities. So how service is provided depends on, of course, the number and proportion of LEP persons served, frequency of limited English proficiency persons in which they contact the program, nature and importance of the program, and resources, and if they're available, and of course the costs as well. Here's another example. So Situation would be that some people come to the food pantry and do not speak English. You cannot understand them and have no idea what language they are speaking. You write a note to give someone stating that they need to return with an interpreter. Do you think that this is an acceptable practice? So again, just take a couple minutes and think about that and what possible solutions could be. So first off, this is not acceptable. So a shortage of resources does not eliminate the requirement to make sure that you can serve everybody that needs those services. Children who are minors should not be used as interpreters. So something common when you're coming into the shelter is that someone who doesn't speak a lot of English may want to use their child to interpret, and this can be concerning because children may not really understand what's being asked of them and may not interpret the information in a correct manner so that the adult understands. So volunteers may be used as interpreters, but make sure that those volunteers understand interpreter ethics, particularly confidentiality, especially with working in the shelter. So collection, use of data, and where it's required and not. So it is required in the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, but it is not required in the Emergency Food Assistance Program, except for initial estimates. So this data will help determine if there are disparities between the potentially eligible populations and the participating populations, or if it shows discrimination. It will also determine if future outreach efforts should target potentially eligible persons and households to make them aware of what programs are actually offered. So when people are providing things about themselves, they're often asked to self-declare their income. If they refuse to disclose their info, you or someone else will use their best discretion to code that person's race or ethnicity or other information. This data will help determine whether there are disparities between the people that are eligible and those that are being served. And then also, all data must be kept secure and confidential. So specifically, Safe Place's policy is to never guess or estimate this information. Instead, we record this data as unknown or just leave it blank. Here's another example. So situation may look like with an organization who wants to include their religious literature with the food packages that they're providing. Another example might be an organization that wants to include political advertising on distribution bags. So when you think about both of these, is it allowed? So is it allowed for one, both, or neither? So neither is allowed. No organization that receives direct federal funding assistance from the USDA can discriminate based on religion or political beliefs. These organizations cannot engage in any political or religious activities when distributing food. This includes distributing written items or allowing politicians to campaign during the food distribution. So laws that protect beneficiaries. So with faith-based organizations, they can retain their independence and carry out their mission as long as the USDA funds or activities do not support worship or religious instruction. So something else is that the Equal Opportunity for Religious Organizations in 2004. So organizations cannot discriminate against anyone based on religion or religious belief. Faith-based organizations can use space in their facilities without removing religious art or symbols, but no USDA funds can be used for religious activities. Information on those activities cannot be distributed to clients, and they cannot be made to feel that participation in a religious activity is necessary to receive assistance. So after talking about what we discussed on the previous slide, here's another situation. So as part of its meal service, a soup kitchen wants to require a prayer before the meal. So is this allowed? Yes or no? Just kind of think about it, and then we'll discuss the answer. So the answer is yes. A prayer may be said before a meal. However, there's kind of a little side note to this. So the person leading the prayer must make it clear before the prayer that the activity is not part of the distribution, and it is not endorsed by the USDA. So cooperation and participation in the activity is not a condition of receipt of the benefits. and that the activity is not conducted in a manner that disrupts the TEFAP commodity distribution or meal service. So attempting to convert people to another opinion and particularly another religion is prohibited under these faith-based rules. So the "And Justice for All" notice must be prominently posted at our program site that details a person's civil rights filing a complaint process. If you're working and you ever have questions about this, it is posted in Safe Place, and a staff member can point you in the right direction to where it is. So this must be translated into major primary languages for the LAP participants in our service area. It has to be posted in a visual area of the agency, and then it must provide appropriate information in alternative formats with disabilities and in other languages for the LAP populations. It has to be the most recent and the correct font size. So agencies and programs, we're required to send out public notifications of our programs to potentially eligible persons. We have to convey the message of equal opportunity in all photos and other graphics that are used to provide program-related information. We also have to include the required non-discrimination statement on all appropriate food nutrition services and agency publications, websites, posters, and information materials. In terms of the non-discrimination statement, basically the long version is as written, and the short version is basically this institution is an equal opportunity provider and may be used where the longer statement does not fit. It should not be posted where information on civil rights is provided, and it must be in a font size no smaller than the font size used in the rest of the publication. So filing a complaint. So you need to remember that everyone has the right to file a discrimination complaint and to never discourage groups or individuals from filing complaints or from voicing allegations of discrimination. Below in the slide, there's two ways that you can file a complaint in the state of Michigan. State and federal governments are required to conduct compliance reviews for agencies or programs to check for non-discrimination and ensure civil rights requirements are being followed. So if it is determined that an agency or program is out of compliance, then those inappropriate actions must be immediately ceased and appropriate procedures must be instituted. If you fail or refuse to resolve the complaint, it can result in the loss of federal assistance. So if you're volunteering or working with Safe Place, here's just some information about how to provide appropriate customer service. So remember that this platinum rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. And then additionally, treat others the way they don't even know that they want to be treated. To treat everyone with dignity and respect, be patient and polite, have empathy. So understand that people may not know the rules or understand how programs may work. They may feel uncomfortable coming to ask for help as well. Smile when appropriate. Make people feel welcome and valued. Explain the policy and let them know you must follow the same rules for everybody. Do not be afraid to apologize, and don't feel you need to have the last word either. A little bit on conflict resolution. So if a conflict occurs, try to remain calm. Listen and be empathetic and use information to determine what the issue is. Also try to explain the situation. So any rules or expectations that we may have, and then offer solutions and follow-up. You can also get help or call for immediate assistance, especially if the threat of violence is possible. That concludes the civil rights training. Thank you for listening.